Lies that lead to murder, that lead to more lies. Here we're going to be unpacking everything that happened this week with some very special guests, and as usual, lots of scumbags, lots of heroes, only on JNS, only on the Quad. Welcome back, everybody, to the Quad here from Jerusalem on Jerusalem Day, a very special day that we'll talk about a little bit later. But here in the studio with my incredible co-hosts, Shoshana Keats Jaskoll, who is the founder of Chokhmat Nashim, elevating Orthodox women's voices and fighting discrimination. Rashi Elmaliah, who is the chief thinker of Seital and the best marketing woman that I know. And my good friend Avi Mayer, former chief editor of the Jerusalem Post, and now the founder of the Jerusalem Journal, and a pioneer because he was the man that opened up the door to other men coming on the Quad. Thank you very much. Now, friends, we have an incredible, difficult situation that makes us understand where exactly we are in history. We have lies that caused murder, that caused more lies. Look at this.
What appears to be a targeted attack on Jews in our nation's capital. A gunman fatally shooting 2 staff members from the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C.
The suspect posted online denouncing Israel for its war with Hamas.
Free Palestine!
But I want to urge you first to support Elias's actions. He is not a terrorist. He's a resistance fighter. And the fact is that the fight against Israel's war machine, against their genocide machine, against their criminality includes their foreign diplomats in this country and internationally.
He seems like a really normal guy who was very passionate about what was happening in Palestine. I don't know any group of people in the world that have achieved their freedom without violent resistance, unfortunately.
Then they're like, why would you ever do this? That's crazy, that. And I won't say, that I'm glad the guy did it or anything like that. I don't support violence, but let's just be real here.
I just don't even know how to unpack what's happened in the last week. And I feel like I'm repeating myself because every week is like, I can't believe that just happened. I can't believe that just happened. So we have a tragic murder of 2 beautiful young people, 2 people who worked for the embassy, one of Jewish heritage who was a Christian, and his almost fiance, a nice, wonderful young Jewish woman, by a disgusting murderer who globalized the Intifada all by himself. And we all know, because all of us in our own way have been shouting from the rooftops, that blood libels are called blood libels for a reason, because lies against Israel and the Jewish people lead to murder, lead to violence. And here we have it. And yet, what is so difficult to comprehend is the reaction, which is, again, actually, maybe it's also difficult to comprehend when we see what happened on October 8th and 9th and 10th. The reaction is, oh, they're to blame. The reaction is conflagration between a war in the Middle East and just people being murdered on the streets of the capital of the United States. Shoshana, you were just in the US.
Yeah.
You were there with the backlash.
I was there when it happened. My husband actually sent me the news item, and I was like the shock. Obviously we watch the news, we listen to the news, our feeds are constantly, our WhatsApps are being updated with what's going on. I didn't expect that when I was in the States. Oh, you'll be away from this whole thing for a couple, I was not away.
Shoshana.
And it just devastating. I mean, anyone who knows Jewish history, anyone who's been following along knows that this was just inevitable. When you scream globalized the Intifada, when you're conflating Jews with Israelis, with the war, with the IDF, with everything, and you blame Israel for what's going on, this isn't the inevitable next step. We've seen it throughout history, and it was unfortunately, as shocking as it wasn't really a surprise.
But also, it got there because we tolerated, or the countries at play here tolerated months and years of terrible demonstrations, terrible libels on the street, posters. Avi, you're in the front lines of the media. How do you see this whole thing?
This incident actually hit very close to home for me.
Yeah.
As someone who spent many years living in the DC area, who worked for both the Israeli Embassy and the American Jewish Committee, which hosted the event.
Oh, wow.
Yaron was actually the brother of one of my former employees at the Jerusalem Post, and he and I had interacted on Twitter before. And what has stuck with me from this incident is the knowledge that if I were to be murdered in an anti-Semitic attack in America, there would be millions of people who would justify it. They would.
And
We see
happy
it.
about it even.
Happy about it, joyous about it, that this is what we deserve, that this is indeed, as you said, globalizing the Intifada. And I think it is inevitable after seeing the environment that has been formed over the past year and a half, the hatred, the virulent anti-Semitism, that this was going to happen. It's only a matter of time. We all knew it was only a matter of time. Yes. But to see the response, the people aren't even shameful about it. They're not sitting and being, a contrite, oh, look, the environment they created that fostered this violence. They're saying, no, they kind of deserved it.
Yeah.
They kind of deserved it.
Which is what happened exactly after October 7th.
Shocking.
Which was the shock of a lot of Americans, even though people like us who've been on the soil that is X and the social media for years knew that it was building up and boiling up and boiling up. And this is inevitably what's happened. And in the end, the Intifada will be globalized against them and not just Jews. I mean,
for sure.
That's the irony. Now, the latest blood libel that led to this particular round, or I think it's an accumulation, to be honest, Rashi, something that you have some knowledge of, is the whole thing about the starving babies, right? That was the last big libel to go around the world. Like Churchill said, the lie goes around the world before the truth has got a chance to put his pants on. And we are still dealing with this issue, which has now come out to be a complete lie. Anybody correct it? Anybody change it? And yet we still have a situation of humanitarian aid in Gaza, which is a dilemma for Israel, because Hamas are taking the aid, they're selling it to their own innocent people at a premium, and they're funding their terrorists through this aid. So Israel is in a dilemma. And instead of countries coming to help our dilemma, what are they doing? Using it to attack us and libel us. But how do you see the situation today with the humanitarian aid?
It really is a deep dilemma that Israelis and Jewish people deal with that our enemies don't have to deal with at all. It's so much easier for them because for them, their entire mission is kill Jews, use any violent measures possible, lie, takia. So they lie anything, any blood libels, any lies they have. And then that's their whole mission. Jewish values deeply are for life. Even we're not allowed to celebrate the death even of our enemies. It's it's a thing. And Jewish people in Israel especially, but because we're so close to it, but around the world, truly don't want to see innocent children dying, even though we all know that between 90 to 100% of people in Gaza support Hamas. We all know that. It's not like we think that there are many, many innocent people there. We know
Do you think they still support Hamas?
Yes.
We are not hearing more voices of people saying enough is enough.
No, I actually consulted with someone who I can't disclose who, but who intimately knows what's going on and the people there. And they said, absolutely not. There are certain people who right now have an interest in being saved because their life sucks.
Right.
But absolutely not. And they actually said to me once something recently. They said, if any of the people in Gaza were given a button and nobody saw them do it, and their button would just eliminate all of Israel, would they do it? Yeah.
Oh, there's plenty of Jews that would do that too. Sorry. It's just true. It's just true. I'm not going to say that it's not true, that someone didn't know you were going to do it and you're going to press a button, they would eliminate all the Palestinians. There are people who do that.
There certainly are. I mean, what's so striking to me about this whole conversation is this insistence on the part of so many aid organizations and aid agencies, including the UN, who say that they will not cooperate with this new Israeli aid initiative, this new American Israeli independence thing, because it violates the principles of neutrality and so on. It took me exactly 30 seconds to Google how far back it is that Hamas has been stealing UN aid. I found a press release from 2009 on the UN website where the UN was complaining that Hamas was stealing their aid. And my question is, what have you been doing for the past 16 years?
Employing them.
Employing them at the very least.
Yeah.
You haven't developed a mechanism to circumvent Hamas, to prevent them from stealing your aid. You know that this is a problem. You've known it for 16 years.
Where are the values of neutrality?
Where are the values of neutrality there? Why are you not equally concerned about getting the actual aid to the people who need it in Gaza, as opposed to playing this political game against the state of Israel?
Well, it's the same reason why the Red Cross are not really concerned with our hostages, but they keep asking Israel to let them visit the Nukba terrorists.
Yeah.
Those are the worst terrorists of October 7th.
Right.
What is going on? Like, what is this kind of endemically, are these aid organizations just endemically anti-Israel, anti-Semitic? Is it because they're being run by anti-Semites or have they been run by Hamas? And it's like real deep in there.
They've been run by anti-Semites, but the challenge is that there's been this fusion between the Marxists, we want to destroy America. All these protests are death to America, death to Israel. There's been this wonderful fusion, collaboration between this whole Marxist movement that wants to destroy America and the Muslim Brotherhood that wants to take over the world. And in the meantime, you look at Iran, what happened? It's very convenient for them to have all these communists at universities. That's where it started there as well. And then as soon as they've gotten rid of all the other people and they're left just with the useful idiots who help them to achieve their goals, then they consume them. And these people, including this Rodriguez guy, he has no idea that he's being used as a useful idiot. He's just so riled up by this lies-driven hatred. It's no coincidence that just before and just after these murders, there was an avalanche of lies about aid, about deaths. There was this kid who was killed, the starvation. I saw it even on Israeli people's feeds. It took me also 30 seconds to Google the image and see that it was a kid who was starving from Tripoli 4 years ago. I mean,
so is the media not doing their due diligence, or it just fits into their narrative? And so they're happy to go with it because all of the media, I was interviewed dozens of times last week, and all the questions were about the starving babies, which has now been, of course, debunked. So, I mean, we have our friend David Collier, who we've interviewed on the show, who again is somebody who does half an hour, 2 hours of research and uncovers the worst possible scams and lies of the BBC and other mainstream media. Why is it that nobody's doing their actual job as
Nobody wants to work. First of all, I just came back from the States. Nobody wants to work. No one wants to work in general. There's a whole general.
No, it is.
I don't want to work. Okay, that's first of all. Second of all, there's the I want to get clicks. It's a perfect storm of immediate gratification, of not having to do too much work, of knowing that people aren't going to fact check you. And it's an instant reward, right? 14,000 babies, it came from some report that actually what it said was, if there's no change, then in the next year, it's possible that 14,000 children will starve to death. And in the next 48 hours.
Will experience malnutrition.
Sorry, you're right. Exactly. I apologize. Well, see, I don't even know the truth anymore. We'll experience malnutrition.
Which, of course, is terrible.
Of course. It's terrible. That was turned into an hour.
It's also terrible in Sudan and nobody cares.
So what happens when you take someone who's young, has passion, fire, and tell them, babies are going to starve in 48 hours if you don't kill some Jews? The guy packed up a gun, thank you, America, got on a plane, flew to Washington.
Got on a plane?
Yes!
Where from?
Bought a
Chicago.
ticket.
He's from Chicago.
Oh, Lord.
And
what is living in D.C.?
to Washington and stalked and waited there. This was not a passionate, oh my God, if I don't do this right this second, I just heard something, I'm going to kill someone. Not a moment of passion. It was premeditated and planned and took money and effort and time. And then he stayed there.
He was so calm about it.
He stayed
So calm
there.
about it. He went back inside. They thought that he was a witness. They gave him water. They sat him down. And only when the police arrived did he actually disclose that he had carried out the attack.
And how on earth did that happen? Because you know this. In the diaspora, Jewish events are very security, oriented. Everywhere I've been, there's a lot of security. I mean, this must be also a big screw up in terms of security, no? This guy was pacing up and down.
So I was on CNN the other day. They said, we were shocked to learn that Jewish events are publicized without their location.
Oh,
because of this. I said, well, yes, Jews are long accustomed to this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they said, well, how could this happen? I said, well, I don't know, but it's possible he just registered for the event.
Yeah.
Right? It's certainly possible he just signed up online, got the location, showed up, and decided to murder 2 people. But for sure, I think it's definitely something to be looking at, how to tighten even further the security precautions around Jewish events and Jewish sites.
It's incredible. I was actually near your synagogue on Shabbat because a friend of mine had a nice event there. And, as I was walking into this school, which is a synagogue on Shabbat, I actually thought to myself, there's no security at synagogues because we're in Jerusalem. But anywhere you go around the world, I've been to places that if you don't tell them before Shabbat that you're going to a synagogue, they won't let you in. They don't care who you are. That's how secure it is. And now we know why.
Yeah, except a photo of your passport.
You have to do a photo ID. Yeah. You have to have told them ahead of time. And this is why. And it's just, the reaction is ridiculous. And I think that maybe it's causing a to that reaction is causing a lot of people, maybe I'm just wishful thinking, but maybe it's causing a lot of people in the West to go, something actually doesn't make sense here when people are celebrating a murder of 2 innocent people. Do you think that this could be...
I haven't seen so much of
Do you think that this is one of those events that could like hinge and something could start changing?
I would like to think so. I think the number of headlines that I've seen that are focused on the fact that there were Israeli embassy staffers, as though this was a political protest, is a clear effort to undermine that. But I think that, right-minded, serious people will look at it and be like, this is not something we want to be a part of. This is a problem in our country. We need to fix it.
So it's interesting that you say that, because I've seen the comments on these news articles, and most of the comments. Now, you could say, okay, only crazy people comment on newspaper articles. It could be.
I don't think it's just crazy people, honestly.
I flew 21 hours. I had to fly to Dubai, then to New York. And I was afraid. I was afraid to tell people I was Jewish, that I was Israeli. I had a seatmate who seemed like the nicest guy. I hope you're enjoying your surfing, Kramer. And I didn't know if I should say that I was, obviously I'm American also, and I didn't know if I should say that I was Israeli or Jewish. And through the conversation, I felt, okay, I feel safe saying something. And I'm in the back of my Jewish, Holocaust survivor granddaughter, paranoid mind, I'm like, well, that only took you about half an hour to figure it out that you were safe enough to say it, Shoshana. Okay, maybe we're moving up in the world, but it's a tragic thing that I feel unsafe on an airplane to say whether that I'm Jewish/Israeli. And that is not, I don't think it's going to change anytime soon.
I had an interaction before this attack, about 2 weeks ago. I was speaking to a group of students visiting Israel, virtually all of whom were non-Jewish. And I told them about running a newspaper on October 7th during the war, what that experience was like, and we opened up for Q&A. And they asked me if I've ever felt unsafe over the past year and a half. And it took me a second. I said, you know what? I was in Israel on October 7th. I've been here through Iranian missile attacks. I was here throughout the entire war. I have never felt more unsafe than when I was on a US college campus and I was being hounded. I had to be escorted out a back door for my safety. And they were gobsmacked. Their jaws hit the floor. They said, you felt less safe on a US college campus than in a war zone? I said, absolutely.
I mean, you hear this again and again. You hear this from people who say, I feel individually safe. I feel collectively safe in Israel. And I don't feel that anymore. Rashi, you're Australian. You travel a lot.
Yeah.
You travel with your kids.
Yeah, I did. Actually, it's funny because, kids have inhibitions that we don't have as adults. And my kid, Sky, he's 11. We were in Abu Dhabi. And the Uber was on its way, an Arab name. And I said to him, I don't know which Arab he is. If it's local Arab, usually they're fine. But some of them are not. They're coming from all different places around the world. And I said to them, speak in English. So he gets into the Uber and he says to the guy, so where are you from? And the guy says, Pakistan. He said, so about the Pakistan-India war. And he said, my child, he said to him for 20 minutes about the war. And then at the end, I said to him, I'm very proud of you. You had a really interesting geopolitical conversation and really good English. Good job. But I wish you would have had that conversation with my dad. He said to me, he's 11 years old. He said, your dad knows that we're Jewish and that we're good people. Muhammad from Pakistan now knows that we're Jewish and good people.
Wow.
And I think that is something for all of us to walk around with pride. I have my nails like this all the time. They're going to be like this in London. I wouldn't obviously go into the middle of a crowd unprotected and suicide. But absolutely, I have no...
I feel the same way. Before, but I have a pretty big Star of David. And there are moments where I forget it's there. And then I think, ooh, that person's reaction was like this. And then I try and kind of think back, how did they react to me? I guess you have that because you wear a kippah. But when you're a woman, you don't have an outwardly sign that you're Jewish. So this is why I have my Magen David. And it's interesting how some people react so well. But then in other places where I don't feel safe, I tuck it in because... You don't want to be put in a difficult situation. But the fact that we even have to think about it, the fact that every other religion can walk around and wear whatever they want, whatever signs of religion they want, and somehow we can't, if that's not anti-Semitism, if that's not the justification for the fact that we need a Jewish country, people, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
I don't know what is. Well, in that wonderful note of us understanding where we are in the arc of history, we go to our very favorite segment, Scumbag of the Week. Okay, and as usual, so many scumbags, so little time. Avi Mayer, who's your scumbag this week?
Well, my scumbag actually was a pretty easy choice. It's this young guy named Guy Christensen who looks a little bit like a very angry Cabbage Patch Kid. And he has developed this presence online. He has 3.4 million followers across platforms.
Oh, Lord.
And he has utilized his platform to become one of the most vicious anti-Semites, anti-Israel propagandists. In the immediate aftermath of the attack in Washington, he issued some sort of lame condemnation and immediately revoked it and said, essentially, they deserved it for being Zionist, that this is the sort of thing that resistance looks like and we should be having more of this. Now, he's been deplatformed on some of the social media sites, but there are others where he's still very present. And the fact that he's 3.4 million followers and people are actually paying attention to what he has to say is shocking to me. This is a guy, by the way, who at one point faked his own death to draw more attention and more clout online.
How old is he?
He's like 19 or so. He's like a college freshman. Anyway, if there's anyone who is deserving of the title Scumbag of the Week, it is absolutely Guy Christensen. And he is my scumbag.
That guy is beyond. Every time I see him, he's cringier and cringier. He's cringier.
Honestly, he's like a parody of himself. You look at him, he wears these ridiculous like Palestine paraphernalia. He's constantly with the confetti. Like, dude, like you're a white kid and wherever the hell you are, take it easy.
Yeah.
Like, what did we do to you? This is not conflict. Stay away.
I know. I've got a friend from New York, my friend Miriam, who is like, she trolls him. She can't stand him. And she's been telling me for years. And I honestly, for my own mental health, I try not to follow these people because what do I need that for? I know it's out there, you know?
Yeah.
I don't need to be reminded of how stupid and hateful people can be. But this guy takes the biscuit. But he has been deplatformed on Twitch. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
But apparently it's something young people do.
He was taken off of some things and left on others. I mean, look, I'm sure is making them a ton of money, right?
No, he needs to be in
for a million followers.
Jail.
Yeah, I agree.
Not, you know, there's
No, he needs to go to
incitement.
jail, right?
Absolutely. There's incitement. There's incitement before. Then the murder happened.
Yes.
And then he said, good job.
Yeah,
now
let's have more
go
of that.
kill Jews.
Right.
I mean,
Now go
this,
kill Jews.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if that's
that's
not-
what he said after. Like,
That's not racial incitement.
you can say those
racial
words. I'm
hatred.
paraphrasing, but that's what he said.
But-
And
By the way, and this is something important.
should be arrested.
For years, we've been told that the true threat comes from far-right anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Because far-left anti-Semitism is uncomfortable, it's anti-Zionism, makes
Free
Jewish
speech.
students, but it's free
political.
speech.
It's political.
Now we see far-left anti-Semitism killing people in the streets of Washington, D.C.
Yes.
We need to have the FBI and other law enforcement agencies take that just as seriously as they would neo-Nazis and the KKK and anyone else on the far right. And I want to start seeing that.
Well, I think that the Trump administration, to credit where credit's due, is taking it very seriously on college campuses.
Sure, yeah, but I don't know that the same monitoring is happening for far left groups as happens for far right groups. I don't know that they have the same surveillance going on. I don't know that they're being monitored to quite the same extent, and they certainly have to be.
Okay, Rashi, so who's your scumbag this week?
So my scumbag of the week is we're going to put a face and a name to the person who spun this whole wonderful story about the 14,000 babies. His name is Tom Fletcher. He's the guy with that really cool picture like this in front of his sports BMW convertible, whatever it is, that basically his lies about...
Who is he, though?
Okay, so here's the head of the UN. He works for the United Nations on their payroll.
Okay,
He's their chief humanitarian officer.
Chief humanitarian officer. His job basically is to prolong the Palestinian suffering because that's what pays for these multiple departments in the United Nations that I've seen with my own eyes. There are more United Nations, there are more Palestinian officers and presence in the United Nations than any other country that actually exists. Anyway, so his job is to keep this conflict going. He is the one who actually announced that the 14,000 babies, not children, are going to die, not maybe malnourished, in 2 days if you don't go out and do something about it, instead of within a year, which is plenty of time to figure stuff out. And then this goes back to what you were saying. The media, BBC, Sky News, everyone else were just all too glad to say it. And I don't think that they don't fact check. I think they say it before it's even reneged by the people, because the United Nations itself says, oh no, that's not what we meant. But they know that all this media is going to pick it up. That's their plan.
Mm-hmm.
But do these people lose their jobs?
No, that is their job. That is their job.
Zero accountability.
That is their
How
job.
how does a person who works as a humanitarian aid officer end up with a sports car? Because I don't know anybody who makes that type of money.
The billions of dollars coming into the United Nations and going into...
From where?
From
Our tax dollars.
Tax dollars, by the way.
The United States is the largest funder of the UN. Why is there no accountability? Why do we not have U.S. officials saying, enough of this.
Yeah.
This guy has got to lose his job. He has no right being where he is.
Well, they're trying to now do it with Francesca Albanese. Boo, we hate her. She's been a perpetual scumbag of the week here. But basically, I think it's the FBI. No, somebody's basically trying to. The American State Department or the American Justice Department has put out something to the UN saying, get rid of her. She took money. She took bias. She has, as if she was ever neutral, but she's basically, they've got her on record taking money from Hamas proxies and Hamas affiliates.
Right.
It's not just that, it's that their whole existence is based on this machine.
Yes.
And the death of Palestinians, in addition to the stories of death of Palestinians, and they don't really care which one you use, pays for their lavish lifestyle and control around the world.
Yes. And that's why these people are perpetuating the conflict. Of course. Because conflict pays.
Yep.
And on the back of innocent people, they are enriching themselves, enriching their organizations, and perpetuating the suffering and the pain.
And
that's the problem with the conflict. And if they can kill Jews, that's a bonus.
Bonus.
Oh, how depressing. Great scumbag. Tom Fletcher, absolutely. Shoshana.
Well, my scumbag is actually yours and yours combined to, and I don't want to say his name because names have power and I don't want to give him any more airtime. But the monster who murdered Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Lynn Milgram outside of the Jewish Heritage Museum in Washington last week. I think the idea that you can be so certain that by murdering people on the street, random people, Jewish people, going to a place, taking a gun, putting it in your bag, getting on an airplane, traveling, the whole time, nothing in your brain is saying, this might not be a good idea. Maybe I shouldn't be randomly killing people, but rather you're talking yourself up. You go, you sit there, you wait, and then after you shoot them and she's crawling away, you continue to shoot.
Yes.
There should be zero mercy. There should be no justification. There should be no ifs, ands, or buts about this cold-blooded act of terror and murder. You are a scumbag who should never see the light of day. And anyone who justifies what you did or why you did it should join you and really wake up and understand what is happening here. This is not random. This is a combination of what is happening with the media, with the UN organizations, with random idiots on Twitter and Twitch and Instagram who think that you're just pontificating and getting likes, but you are murdering people. You are all complicit.
Wow, Shoshana.
I cannot believe that we're actually having this conversation.
But you're right. How on earth did you get on a plane with a gun?
So it's America.
You can check it. You can check it.
Second Amendment, baby. How did he get a gun? Why was he not checked? Why all these questions you can ask.
Oh, Lord.
And it all comes together into this perfect storm.
How did he have the time? This, by the way, would never have happened in Israel. How did he have the time to shoot her while she was crawling away?
He actually
go up to her and then make sure that she's dead. He emptied 20 bullets into these two people. 20 bullets.
It was an execution.
Of course it was an execution. He executed. She was crawling away and he went back to execute her, to finish her off. This poor girl, their poor families, honestly, all our love and all our sympathy.
I want to say something
goes out to them.
On the airplane from the States to Dubai, there are BBC headlines. Yeah. And I'm watching them go across, and I'm noticing that out of about 11 world headlines, 4 are about Israel.
Always. It's an obsession.
But this is something that I'm thinking about it. I'm 14 hours on an airplane. And whatever I'm watching, this is in my background. Do you understand the subliminal messages that I am getting as whomever I am? That Israel, and like one thing about Trump and one thing about the Navy in Britain. And I'm like, this is
indoctrination.
Yes. This is the media is indoctrinating us to think that Israel is the worst, the baddest, the biggest. And if we don't actually do something about this, this is our future.
Well, the thing is that Qatar is paying big money to all these media organizations, the ones they own and the ones they actually pay for a lot of advertising. Just switch on CNN. All you see is Qatar Airways, Qatar Media City, Qatar Smart City. Honestly, they have bought the souls of the Western world, lock, stock, and barrel. They bought the universities, they bought the think tanks, and they bought the media. And the fact that everybody's just sitting and letting this happen, like our friend Ateret Shmuel says in wonderfully progressive language, this is soft colonialization. That's what these countries are doing. And they're the best at it. We know that. Okay, so my scumbags this week are the three countries that decided that instead of condemning Hamas for starting October 7th, instead of condemning Hamas for still keeping 58 hostages, many of them in conditions like we haven't seen since the Holocaust, instead of blaming Hamas for stealing the humanitarian aid, and they know full well that that's what's happening, instead of helping Israel in our moral dilemma and a logistical dilemma of making sure that the aid is not stolen by Hamas, and so people are actually fed, the UK, France, and Canada decided that what they wanted to do with their time this week was to condemn Israel and to announce that the solution for all of this is, of course, the declaring of a Palestinian state. The UK, Canada, and France. Now, my theory is that these people, these countries, these leaders, first of all, as Ruti pointed out last week, they're all left-wing governments, and they all have the same problem, which is Islamic fundamentalism in their countries. But instead of facing this on, instead of dealing with the fact that their countries are on their way down because they're going to be taken over by Islamic fundamentalism, and they're just sitting back and paying, giving them justification for what they do, they've decided that the best thing they can do with their diplomatic power is to attack Israel, to attack Netanyahu, to say that we are, basically committing genocide, and to announce that the result of all of this should be a two-state solution, which they don't know what it looks like. They don't know if it's going to be another enclave of the Islamic Republic. They know what the Palestinian Authority have done with their state, called Judaism area the West Bank, where 94% of Palestinians live. They know it's corrupt. They know it's a kleptocracy, and they know that they fund terrorism. They know what's happening in Gaza. So what exactly a two-state solution do they actually propose? Now, for me, this is disgraceful. They're scumbags. They're more than scumbags. They're cowards because they're not facing their problems. They're selling their countries down the river. They're trying to kick the can down the road and hoping that the crocodile will eat them last, which is exactly what the world did in the 1930s with Hitler, before Churchill said, enough is enough, we've got to face the enemy and call the enemy out. Now, for me, the only bright little cloud in this story, or lining on the cloud of this story, is that they didn't include Spain. Because, Pedro Sanchez, who wants to be one of the leaders of Europe, he's really not important enough and has made himself a bit of a pariah. So that's, for me, the only little giggle that I have in all of this horrible situation, is that Pedro Sanchez is not even important enough to join the other haters. So what I will say is that 2 nights ago, an article came out in Israel Channel 12 saying that Britain, the British government, is actually the 4th or 5th largest sponsor of Hamas. And so Keir Starmer, you are condemning the very thing you're feeding, and you're taking us further away from peace, if that's your aim, and not closer to peace. So check your own house, deal with your own problems, and try and save your own country before you pull your condemnation on us. So these 3 countries, Canada, France, and Britain, scumbags of my week. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
We are always wanting to finish our show with a slew of amazing heroes, because as many scumbags there are many great people in the world. And these are the stories that we need to hang on to have hope here. So Rashi, who's your hero this week?
There were many heroes that stood up for us on the world stage this week, but I decided to bring a little bit of a flashback from 8 years ago. Bridget Gabriel is the Lebanese warrior. And she actually got up 8 years ago and read directly from the Muslim Brotherhood's 150-year plan of how they're going to colonize and destroy America from within. And she read it. It's all open. And they basically, and what the reason I'm bringing her up now is because at the time she tried to warn the world. She yelled and pleaded to warn the world. No one listened. This week, we're seeing, this whole year and a half, but certainly this week, we're seeing their plan to take over the universities, to indoctrinate through the universities, to take over government from within without a bullet. They're taking over countries. As you said, it perfectly represents exactly what they're doing. They're not hiding it. It's all written there in black and white. And people not listen to it is just stupid. So my hero, not just today, but for many, many years back, and I'm sure many years forward, is Bridget.
Well, she's amazing. And she saw her country taken over by Islamic fundamentalism. Yeah. Just like our friends, the Iranians in the diaspora, saw their country taken over by Islamic fundamentalism. The writing's on the wall, people. Whatever.
It's true. It's really true. And we don't want to hear it.
And the media. The universities, government, media. There are members of Congress who are radical Islamists.
Yeah.
Now, that's insane.
In the UK Parliament, there's 6 of them, and they make no bones about it. And they're in Parliament.
Right.
They came in independently, and they came in because of Gaza. In the UK, in cities that really need help, but they don't care because that's what they're preaching. Shoshana, who's your hero?
Oh, my hero of the week is a young man named Jonathan Epstein. You should watch this clip to understand why he's my hero of the week.
I went to Columbia for grad school, and I saw the same thing in his eyes as I saw in the eyes of all the protesters at Columbia. Nothing different between him and them.
But they did not create this horrific shooting. They did not, they didn't shoot.
They gave permission. They gave the permission. And they have called for this. They have called for Intifada revolution, which is the same thing he yelled last night.
But when a CNN anchor is trying to separate the chants that he heard on his university campus from the murders that took place in Washington, he is having none of it. Yeah. He's like, well, actually, they are connected, surely, because when you scream globalized Intifada and you scream Intifada revolution, what do you think is going to happen?
Exactly.
You are talking to young minds that are not fully developed, that have zero context or understanding, not like Bridget, who knows what happened to her country, or who they only read what they're given in their university syllabuses. My God. They certainly don't read the things that the Islamists are putting out there on the internet for everyone to see, unless they do read them and then get on board with them. But if you don't understand what's happening around the world, which many university students don't, and you are indoctrinated like this, of course, someone's going to go and take a gun. So thank you, Jonathan, for calling out the CNN anchor who, for some reason, wants people to think there's no connection between the two of them. I don't understand what CNN, BBC, and the rest of you are thinking, but you are complicit, as I said before, as we have said before, in these murders and in anything else that happens to the Jewish people around the world with the lies that you tell.
Amen. So true.
Really worked out.
Again, it's not like there's no history to show what happens when you say the Jews poisoned wells and then you have the Inquisition. I mean, we have the historical proof of what a blood libel is. Why can't they see it? I don't understand. Avi, let's focus on your hero. Who's your hero this week?
Over the past 19 months, we have seen a lot of folks, a lot of organizations, a lot of groups who we thought had been our allies turn out not to have been very good allies at all, and others who have actually revealed themselves to be quite wonderful allies. One of those has been the United Arab Emirates. And I would like to read to you the statement put out by the UAE ambassador to the United States, Ambassador Youssef Al-Otaiba, in the aftermath of the Washington attack. I hope you can put this on the screen. I want to extend my deepest condolences and sympathies to the families of Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram and the entire Embassy of Israel to the United States staff. This horrific murder outside an event promoting interfaith cooperation and humanitarian diplomacy was a heinous act of anti-Semitism that has no place in the US or anywhere around the world. It must be unequivocally condemned as such. Our hearts are with our longtime partners at the American Jewish Committee, and we stand with our friends in Jewish communities in the US, the UAE, and around the world. What an incredible statement. If only we heard those exact words from every single elected official, diplomat, anchor on TV networks. That is the exact moral certitude that we need to be hearing from our leaders. And so he is unequivocally my hero of the week.
I love Youssef Al-Otaiba. I've been on panels with him. He was a champion of the Abraham Accords. He's a friend of the region because he understands where the region is going. He's really awesome, but the UAE have been awesome. And let's not forget, there was a murder of a Jew in Abu Dhabi. And where are those murderers now? They were put to death. That's the UAE. In Abu Dhabi, there's a NYU campus, not one protest, and one guy got on stage at the graduation ceremony with a kafir said Free Palestine, out in 3 hours out of the country.
Wow.
That is the moral clarity that the UAE have. And you spoke about Bridget Gabriel, But ABZ, who is the foreign minister of the UAE, 10 years ago said the same thing. He said, Europe, don't be fooled. Don't be so politically correct that you can't see and recognize Islamic fundamentalism. We've been dealing with it.
And this is coming soon to a theater near you.
Coming soon to a European city, or turns out American city near you. And the UAE have been warning. And so the UAE have moral clarity. They are a country that have decided to take the identity of tolerance. And they've done a great job.
100%.
And you know how I feel about the UAE, and I'm very happy because Youssef Al-Otaiba really is a champion of regional peace. And that's what we need.
100%.
God bless him. Okay. So my hero of the week is Dr. Phil. Because Dr. Phil, first of all, he's been to Israel. He understands what's going on here. But after the murders, he came out and he did a monologue on his show, which is seen by millions and millions of people. The guy has a huge platform. And he's using it for the good, because what he did was call out the media for their hypocrisy. He said, you don't report, first of all, and he brought up some examples. You don't report that the murders are of Jews. You say, 2 killed in downtown shooting. And then on top of that, he brings different articles that try and justify, this is mainstream media, the murders that happen in Washington with what's going on in the war here. So if you put it together, it's almost justifies. So there's like 4 terrorists dead in the West Bank, of course they don't call them terrorists, and 2 in Washington, D.C. And he's saying, what are you doing?
Some legacy media treated this as a run-of-the-mill street crime. Reuters headline, get this, 2 Israeli embassy staffers shot dead in downtown Washington, lone suspect held. Now, let me ask you something. Is that true? Yes, that's true. Is it accurate? Not even almost. Media blurs anti-Semitism. The BBC's analysts all but blamed Israel. The headline, shooting follows global criticism of Israel's expanding Gaza offensive. Really? So that is something that's being offered to make this okay?
Where have we gotten to? When you can't just condemn, like Youssef Al-Otaiba just did, when you can't just condemn and say, this is heinous, this has got nothing, should have nothing to do with what's going on in the Middle East, or it's because of the lies that you're telling about what's going on in the Middle East, and you just plain condemn it. Why can't you just plain condemn a murder of 2 innocent people? And I loved the way that he said it, and I love the way that he expressed it. And he expressed it saying, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, because if you're an anti-Zionist, you're against Jewish survival. And I love the way he expressed it. And for so many other reasons, Dr. Phil, you're my hero this week. And I'd like to end with a little l'chaim. L'chaim, because it's Jerusalem Day here in Jerusalem. Our eternal, undivided capital. We've been here for 3,000 years. The reason we are one people and not tribal is because King David created the Jewish nation's capital in Jerusalem. And for 58 years, we have reunited our city. We build our city. We build bridges with all the minorities in our city. And I'm very proud of what we've achieved. And we finish with our l'chaim and also a prayer that our hostages come home very soon.
Amen.
Happy Jerusalem Day.